again, everybody. Jonny Rose here with my second video podcast. This is called Middle-Aged and Lazy. That is exactly what I am. Great feedback on the first one that we did a couple of days ago with Bully Boy Carter. Great feedback. Thanks for everyone who got in touch about that one. Really pleased about today's show. We're going to be joined by the man just there that you can see him on the screen right now. It's the Golden Boy, Joe Cazana. Hello, Joe. How you doing?
How you doing, Johnny? How's everything going?
It's all good. Warm day.
Good. Hey, you say Golden Boy, man. I tell you right now, Golden Boy, he's gone away. I've now become the Silver Fox. You like that with the gray thing going on and a little bit of the gray hair thing going on. You know, I mean, it's not blonde anymore.
Well, we're gonna go back to even before the blonde Golden Boy times and talk about your entire career. You pretty much grew up around wrestling, right? So you've been around wrestling all your life.
Johnny, I grew up in the business. I was born in the business. My granddad was a former wrestler, back in the 30s, 40s, world champion back in the late 30s. He and Jim Londas were a team back then. Jim Londas trained my granddad. Then he and my uncle basically ran the wrestling business in and around the Knoxville, Tennessee market. And then he took it over, himself, and until he sold it out to Ron Fuller in 1974. So
yeah, I was going to say, would that have been opposition to Fuller or sort of previously too?
Mm-hmm.
So it was before the Fullers came into the area.
Oh yeah, long before the Fullers came in. Like I said, he bought into the business probably. I want to say in the early 60s. He got into it. Let me go back a little bit. In the 50s, when television first came out here in the States, he actually had local television live for 90 minutes when nobody else ever did. And back then there was no buffers, there were no filters, so there was a live show on a Saturday when wrestling back then was wrestling, and people bought into everything that was ever done, and it was like these guys were just the meanest, nastiest villains that God ever put breath in, and they let it out, and it was live, man. But again, then as time progressed, he went into the doing the tape thing, and sure. It was all history from there. So I mean, yeah, I go back to day one out of the womb, man.
Yeah. So the live show, would that have been a studio or an arena setting?
Back then he did it at a local TV station up there. It was Channel 10 WBIR, and it was a big type of a studio, more of an old center stage like you would see in Atlanta back in the old days, only not quite as many seats. Maybe about 150 people could get in there, yeah. Sure. So it was pretty cool.
Awesome. So who were some of the names that you sort of grew up watching?
Me or back then, but when he was doing it live, that was before my time. I'm old, Johnny, but not that old.
No, I mean, what's your earliest memory?
I have seen some of the biggest wrestling stars that have ever come through any territory back in the old territory days. From I'll say Ernie Ladd when he first came in, to Lou Thez. Oh my gosh, Andre the Giant. I've seen them all come through Knoxville at one time or another. Knoxville was, up until the big split in 1979, between Southeastern Championship Wrestling and All-Star Championship Wrestling. I mean, Knoxville was a hotbed for pro wrestling. I mean, from Hulk Hogan to anybody that was anybody back in those days would come through.
So was your grandfather an NWA affiliate or?
Yep, he was an NWA affiliate. As a matter of fact, I know that you've seen some of the championships that I posted. Because I mean we're friends on Facebook and we're friends long gone days. But I've actually got pictures of his old championship belt, the Southeastern Championship. It was an NWA affiliated title. It's still in existence at the last champion that ever had that championship. It's still in existence at his widow's house in Kingsport, Tennessee, and I was lucky enough to get a picture of it. She wouldn't let it out of her sight, but I was lucky enough to get a picture. And
So,
my
yeah.
Southeastern Championship belt that I had made for my little promotion that I do, it's almost a 100% replica of his. And that was really cool when I had it. So, yeah.
Nice. So as far as you're concerned, what was your earliest memory of wrestling?
Andre the Giant. I mean, it was probably 1972, and I can remember my granddad brought in Andre the Giant, and I was just I was just a little fella, I was under the age of 10. I was probably 6 or 7, maybe 8 if I was, give or take. This guy, man, this guy comes walking in the arena there in Knoxville, and I knew that he was there to wrestle Ron and Don Wright, who were the biggest heel tag team faction ever to come through East Tennessee at that time. And really even later on, they were still the hottest heels. And to be honest with you, when things were tough, they could be a babyface. So I mean, they were really good. But when Andre came walking into that building, I was like, I was mesmerized, and I just froze. And I saw this guy. I mean, he was bigger than life. He was always smiling. He never had a coarse thing to say to anybody. I mean, and I know people have the stories about Andre. I've got good stories about Andre, especially as a kid my age, actually getting to sit down and just listen and just be in awe of what he was doing. I know you've probably heard of the White Castle hamburger joints here in the States.
Sure, yeah.
Well, in Knoxville, we had something similar. It was called Crystal, and they were the little square burgers. This guy, I mean, Andre would take one burger and just put it in his mouth, and boom, it's gone. But he was just amazing, and to listen to him talk, and even though he didn't speak with very good English at that time, back then, you could still understand him. But I was just in awe of him. And later on, I had an opportunity to work for the WWF, and I'll never forget the day that I walked in the dressing room, and this man remembered who I was, and it was amazing. So I mean, Andre the Giant's the first memory that I have of any kind of wrestling. I can remember going to the shows. I can remember going to the television tapings that my granddad had. But I was a kid, and all I wanted to do was just run around like a yo-yo and just do whatever. I didn't pay attention to the wrestling. But when I saw Andre, that's what got me thinking, even at that age, that this is pretty cool.
Yeah,
so, but that was my earliest memory with Andre the Giant.
I don't think at any age anyone's going to forget meeting Andre the Giant, right?
Oh man, it was just amazing. I mean, the guy, and at that time, he was Andre the Giant. He wasn't what he was, after WrestleMania 3. He wasn't that giant who was just older and couldn't get around that good. This guy, man, this Andre the Giant, athletic, could jump, could leapfrog, could drop kick. Just the stuff that he did, and I remember watching the match with he and Ron and Don, and it was just, and that was back at the time that and I know the world of kayfabe is gone, and that was at a time where it was like, man, this stuff's it's 100%, it's real to me, man. And I just knew Ron and Don, they were friends of my family, and they always treated me well, but I just knew they were getting the crap kicked out of them, and this big old huge 7'4" monster was just beating them within an inch of their life. So, but no, Andre was my first memory.
From that point, I mean, I suppose it's always been kind of set that you would do something in wrestling because of your family's background, but was there a point that you realized that it was definitely something for you?
For years and years and years, I would go to the shows, and even after my grandfather sold out to Ron, it was one of these things, like, it never crossed my mind as a young kid. As I was getting older and getting, more towards the high school years that I had, people still remembered who my granddad was, and they still remembered, the time that they had back when he was doing it. And honestly, people would say, "Hey, man, you gonna go into the family business, yada yada yada." No, I got no interest in wrestling. I had absolutely zero interest in being a professional wrestler. And when I finally decided to do this, it was at my granddad's funeral. At the time, the talent that was in the area, which was at that time it was Continental Championship Wrestling, and it was still Ron Fuller. He was bringing his talent up from Alabama, but Ron and Don and these guys that still work for my granddad that may still be working for Ron Fuller, they came to the funeral, and it was one of these things. It was just, Ron came up to me and he said, "Have you ever thought about being a professional wrestler?" I said, "Absolutely not." I said, "I've got no desire to be a wrestler. I'm just fresh out of high school, and I'm getting ready to tackle the world, man. And I'm going to college." And he said, "I'm going to call the local trainer and see if he's got space for you." And the local trainer was a fellow by the name of Rick Connor, who was one of the toughest son of a guns that you could ever meet. I mean, this guy right here, he was a journeyman wrestler. Never, really did a whole lot as far as, winning championships and things like that. But this guy was without one of the best workers in the business. My granddad trained him, and I figured, well, my granddad trained him. I might as well just see what they got to say. And literally 5 months later, I was trained, so it was a whirlwind at that time.
So how was what was your training like? Was it done in a gym or on the job kind of thing?
When we first got there, it was more of a, back in those days. I know you heard the stories, but the older guys, they didn't take you into their confidence that quickly. Me being who I was made it that much worse, because I was that guy that was just dangerous enough to know the ins and outs. And they still wanted to protect the business. They still protected kayfabe, and to my grandfather's dying day, he never said the F word, and to my now, I mean, the only F word I say doesn't rhyme with rake, so I don't drop that F word at all. No. And but when I first started, the first lesson I had was a 2.5-hour shoot in Rick Connor's backyard. And it was on the hard ground. There was no mats. There was no nothing. We're talking 2 hours of Hindu squats, push-ups, sit-ups. We're talking this bug didn't get away from him. I'm going to get him. But I mean, we probably did 300 Hindu squats that day. And then we started shoot wrestling, and I learned how to shoot wrestle in this guy's backyard. And I thought to myself, what do you get yourself into, dude? I mean, really? And Rick has trained some of the who's who in the wrestling business. I mean, he trained me. He trained Tim Horner. He trained Bad Leroy Brown. He's trained Downtown Denny Brown, former world junior heavyweight champion. He trained the Dirty White Boy. Chris Powers.
That's quite a list.
He's trained a who's who. So I'm thinking, what am I doing here? This is nuts. This is absolutely nuts. I don't want to do this. But then I just kept going, and our class, we ended up, I think it was like 20 of us, when Rick decided to take us down to a little town called Oliver Springs, Tennessee, which is probably 30 minutes from Knoxville. There was an old skating rink down there, and they had wrestling there every Friday night that Rick had promoted. The ring itself was wonderful. It was a solid orange vinyl ring all the way around. The ropes were hard plastic ropes with the cable inside of it. Turnbuckle pad was about as hard as a piece of concrete. In the middle of the ring, in these old rings, you back in the day, you think a TV ring had a little spring in the middle of it. This ring had a tree stump in the middle of it. So we were bumping around on tree stumps. But before we could do any of that, of course, 20 of us are in this skating rink. It was every Tuesday night. I'll never forget it. And it was hotter than 40 hells. It was bad. And we'd do these squats, and we'd do this and that. I bet I threw up 3 dozen times that first night. I mean, it was just like, bleh, bleh. And we just kept going. And it was probably 4 weeks before I ever got in the ring and did anything. And when we did get in the ring, we did shoot wrestling. There was no hitting the rope. There was none of that stuff. And I guess about the third or fourth weekend, people started dropping like flies. And my class of 20, at the end of the day, at the end of that 4.5 month training period, and I had been, and then Rick had me refereeing, you know, those Friday nights that he'd run the shows down in Oliver Springs. So I learned how to referee as I was still training, you know.
Sure.
But there was only 2 of us left standing at the end of that, and that was myself and a guy from Seymour, Tennessee. His name's Tom Pittner, and he wrestled under the name of Tom the Bomb Pittner. And we ended up being the last
Tom
2 men standing.
On your shows, I've seen.
But I'll tell you, Johnny, some of the classes that we were into back then, we'd learn the psychology of wrestling. We'd learn how to do things, when to do things, and how come we're doing it. And just when you think you got all that figured out, our last class entailed 45 minutes of learning how to take chair shots. Now, take about 15 chair shots to the head in one night, and that ain't no fun. So,
no.
but we did, and we may have been concussed, we may not have been, who knows? But back then it really didn't matter, because I mean we just wanted to wrestle, and that's what we did. And I think after that first session we were done, we would always help out and train some of the other guys that were coming in. We'd actually go in there and do all the work while Rick took all the money. But to this day I still think the world of Rick, and he's done such a great job, up there. I mean, he's not as healthy as he once was, but he still has a love for this business. And but it was a lot of fun. And I remember the first night we actually had matches that Tom and I actually worked. I think he and I actually worked each other 4 times in one day. There was a 4-ring deal set up in Kingsport, Tennessee, and we just went ring to ring to ring to ring. So it was interesting, but it was that was my, and honestly, I'm not going into all the other dirty business that went into training, but it was rough, it was hard. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I played high school football. I did all that stuff, but honestly, nothing can touch wrestling training. And my oldest son, he actually starts training Monday with Dr. Tom, and at him and Canes or Glenn Jacobs Wrestling School up in Knoxville. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he ends up. My oldest, he knows just enough to be dangerous right now. So I'm sending him someplace that I guarantee you, Dr. Tom will work with him and make him, the best he can be. So yeah, that's how I brought him.
To go. So was your first match with Tom Pittner?
It was in Kingsport, Tennessee, and that was my first match. And he and I probably went about 10 minutes. I was the baby face, he was the heel, and he beat the living snot out of me. And that was just part of it. It was a chop fest or it was a punch fest. And I took the pin in this ring, or I went to the next ring and I pinned him. It was one of those days. I think we finished 2-2 that day. So it was fun. It was fun. But that was my very first match, was with Tom Pittner.
Yeah. So what direction did wrestling take for you then? Were you automatically in a territory being in Knoxville, or
Lord God,
was it something?
No. It was basically what we ended up doing. Continental Wrestling had gone. They weren't around as Continental Championship Wrestling anymore. Fuller had taken everything, I guess, back to Alabama and down to
What year would we be talking about?
Do what now?
What year are we looking at? Sort of your first year.
85, 86, somewhere around there. But like I said, Fuller took it back down to Bama or Pensacola, or both, and we were just left with little independent things up here, and I would do some stuff. Of course, Oliver Springs was on Friday. I'd work there. Saturday, we'd go work for Dale Mann in Kentucky, or we'd go work for Bud Adams up in Virginia, and we'd travel around and do that. And that's probably pretty much all I would do. And then all of a sudden, Continental Wrestling Federation made its come back to Knoxville. And, of course, Ron owned it. and I was lucky enough to be put on his ring crew. So I would be putting the ring together. There was 3 of us. We'd put the ring up. We'd take the ring down. We'd take up tickets. We'd sell pictures. We'd do everything that we could, or I would, because the other 2 guys were they were constant. The other 2 guys actually worked for my granddad, putting the ring and stuff up. So, and I'd worked on their crew, but I was doing, like I said, selling the pictures and doing all the stuff. Everything that you hear about, on television from these older guys like me that broke in. That's how we broke in, and
Sure.
we broke. I tell the story all the time, and a good friend of mine, Jerry Stubbs, I know you've heard of him, Mr. Olympia.
Sure.
We argue all the time, it's a fun argument. But he was the first guy that ever beat me to death in a big arena. It was just I never saw it coming. Yeah, he and the Dirty White Boy had wrestled against Danny Davis and Ken Wayne, the Nightmares, and I was just there for a pull apart. I mean, that's all I was going to do was just a pull apart. and he ended up dragging me halfway down to the dressing room, bleeding all over me. I'm wearing a white shirt, and it's like, really? So Jerry and I, to this day, we still argue over that. But I love Jerry Stubbs. He's a good one, and they don't come any better.
So what was it after that point that you started wrestling on a more regular basis for Continental?
Well, pretty much. I mean, once I'd been in the business, I guess it was 8 or 9 months, we started getting trips down to Atlanta. Rick would get us booked with Jim Crockett Promotions, and we'd go over to the Carolinas, or we'd go down to Atlanta, and we'd, basically we were what they call today, extras. Back in those days, we were job guys. That's what we did back in those days. I never liked the word job guys, but I mean, that's kind of the terminology that we had back in the mid 80s. And, but we'd go down there and we'd basically be the enhancement talent and get the absolute crap kicked out of us by the major superstars out there. And honestly, it was a job. I made a living at it, in those days. And, I enjoyed going. And it was just, you go to TBS studios, or you go to these places that you've only seen on television, man, and you're just in awe, and,
sure,
and
as well as the people around you. These are like major stars that are around you in the locker room now.
Oh yeah. But but right before I went there, I had my very first huge match. I mean, to me, it was a huge match because it was me versus the Mongolian Stomper, Archie Goldie.
Pretty big.
Man, bless his heart and God bless him. The man passed away a few years ago, and I loved Archie. Archie and I had a lot of really, really, really good matches through the years, both singles and in tags. But this particular night, it was a single match, and I'm working against the freaking legend, that this guy, the Mongolian Stomper, who struck fear into everybody's eyes in the Tennessee area. And he just told me, man, he said, I know this is your first big match, kid, but you just hang on. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna go out there and we're gonna tear it up. And that's what we did. And Archie took care of me that night. And going forward, he always took care of me. And it was always a pleasure working with Archie. I thought the world of him. He was really, really good, and probably one of the best heels that ever came through. I had to be. But to go back to NWA with Jim Crockett, I was working down there, and a lot of us from this area was going down there, and we hooked up, and I met a lot of really good guys. I mean, as far as, some of the Florida guys like Bob Cook and Mike Thor and guys like that. And one of my most dear friends back then was Barry Horowitz. And I love Barry. Barry was, God, what a solid worker he was. But, we'd meet some of the other guys that would come in. Pat Rose and I are still good friends to this day. And,
sure.
And
gave him a name.
Yeah, what a great athlete he was, man. I mean, Pat, I saw Pat. Went down to Paul Lee's place about a month or so ago, 2 months ago, right before the whole pandemic nonsense, came about. And Pat was there. His son was actually playing He was in band that night. So I mean, he was playing. So had a good chat with Pat and still talk to him. And but back then it was a lot of fun going down there. And I'll tell you, it was when Jim Crockett ended up selling to Turner. I'll never forget it. I still had the dark hair at the time. It was kind of like that picture you saw on Facebook the other night. That was about the time frame. It was about a year before the Golden Boy, I guess. And I'll never forget.
That was like 8.
That was
1988. I think that.
Yeah.
It was from USA Championship Wrestling, wasn't it?
Yeah. But it was crazy. So this is a crazy story in itself. But I was going down there. All of us were, and I mean, my work had gotten better. I'd gotten solid, but at that time, you saw the picture. I was probably 315 pounds at the time. I was a big guy. Do what?
I didn't recognize you first away. First off.
Oh, I know. I mean, you had the long brown mullet at the time instead of the blonde one. But yeah, I was about 315 pounds, and I was called into the office at Center Stage, and it was Dusty and Jody Hamilton. And Jody, he's another good one, and I owe a lot of what I did down in WCW and NWA, Jody. I mean, Jody he was a true man to his word, and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. So I go in there and I'm talking to him, and I mean, they're you're a good worker, kid, you're doing well, but you're just too GD fat to wrestle. and I scratched my head, and this is coming from Dusty Rhodes and Jody Hamilton, who both outweighed me at the time.
2 big dudes.
Oh yeah. So it was like, dang. But Jody stepped up, and Jody said, and Dusty agreed with him at the time. Jody said, "Kid, go lose weight, come back down here, I'll put you on contract." And I did that. Went back down at 218 pounds, and he was true to his word. I was on all the TVs, whether I worked or not. I was there, and I was working for WCW 4 nights a week at the time. Same as Bob Cook was, and Pat was, Barry was. A lot of these guys we were working, because at that time WCW / NWA, they were running 2 shows a night. You were on a crew or a B crew. So that's why we all had jobs. And by the time it was all said and done, for the Tennessee market up this way, it was just me and Killer Kyle. We were the last 2 men standing down there. Yeah. At that time, we were the last 2.
Because
Jody held true to his word.
There would have been a big crew from Florida, as well as the Carolina crew, George South and the like from the Carolinas.
Listen,
Chuck Coates.
George South was one of the best workers I ever saw.
Still is.
Still is. I talked to George about a month ago, and he still, like I said, he is still a great worker. And Bob Cook, I'll tell you something. Bob Cook had the most one of the most underrated workers there was. Best punch, that's it right there. Best punch, next to Bobby Eaton. Best punch in the business. And I'm not so sure that Bob Cook's isn't better than Bobby's. That's just me saying that. But there was a lot of guys from the Carolinas. David Isley was good. Tommy Angel was good. I mean, a lot of these guys were just incredible.
Chuck Coates came from there that way. Do you know Chuck Coates?
Who? Chuck Coates?
Chuck Coates.
I remember him.
Yeah.
I remember him. The guy that owns Monster Rings up in Kentucky, Mike Samples.
Mike Samples, yeah.
What a great worker he was.
Yeah.
He was incredible. But these guys never got the due they deserve. But I mean, all of us I'm making mention of, we all worked. Every one of us, we always worked. And George will say it all on his Facebook all the time. While you guys were pinching pimples on your nose, I was collecting paychecks at Jim Crockett Promotions. He ain't lying. That's the truth. I mean, and we were. I mean, we were when Turner bought us, we were getting checks every 2 weeks. I would get a check before I could even cash my other one. I mean, it was insane. It was, but that was at a time that wrestling It was huge. It was huge, and everybody was doing big money. NWA was doing big money. NWA was the place to be at that time. WWF, and I'm not trying to mean any disrespect to the WWF, but at that time they were an afterthought. Because at that time Ric Flair was the man, and
Sure.
he was the heavyweight champion of the world, and that's the only one I recognized.
And certainly
that was my champion.
It's certainly in the South they're far less popular than the NWA were.
Oh, sure. But like I say, Jody treated me right. Dusty treated me right. I never had a coarse word with any of those guys down there. So I mean, it was a pleasure to be there, and it was always a dream to be there after I broke in the business, So I was pleased as I could be to be there, and I remember a lot of matches that I had down there, and I can remember a lot of places that I'd been, and I can remember a lot of the guys that I worked with, and a lot of memorable matches I had down there, and I mean, I've
got a bit of a list of people I want to sort of mention along the way that you work with, but sure. You were there when they sold to Turner,
correct?
And like the Jim Herd kind of era, like was Jim there Herd. A change? Like when Flair left, was there a change of atmosphere?
There. Yep, I was there when Flair left.
Was there a change of atmosphere at that point, or
yes,
were people fearing for jobs? Or?
Johnny, when Flair left, it was kind of like the breath was taken completely out of the NWA, especially when he went up there with the championship belt. When he went up, I mean, honestly, I couldn't blame Rick for doing what he did. He carried the National Wrestling Alliance when nobody else could. He carried WCW when nobody else could. And honestly, I don't blame the guy for going. I mean, they did. The office at that time was that they disrespected, Ric Flair. And honestly, regardless of what people think about Ric Flair, to me, he was the greatest champion that ever walked the face of this earth.
I don't.
Yeah.
You literally wrestled everyone. I've got like a list of 400 names. Like anybody that's been in WCW, you've wrestled them. The Steiners, the Nasty Boys, the Road Warriors, Rock and Roll Express. But if you all want to sort of touch on, I kind of called it the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right?
Let's go back to the Road Warriors for a second.
Go on, then.
Let's do that. Warriors, greatest tag team to ever lace up a pair of boots, even though they never laced boots. They wore their motorcycle boots. The Road Warriors are, without a doubt, in my opinion, like I said, the greatest tag team to ever lace up a pair of boots. They were both really, really good at what they did, and honestly, they were both really, really good people. Animal Joe was God, he was a great I knew Mike a little bit, not as much as I knew Joe, but Mike was a I mean, he was always he was funny, he was personable, but these guys, man, I'll tell you, when I worked them a lot, and I never got hurt. They never hurt me. They always took good care of me. They gave me, they gave me, and I never had a bad match with them. A lot of guys can't say that, but I enjoyed working with them because at that time they knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah, well, the first few guys on my list are a couple that, some people have said they have had bad matches with. Yeah. So I want to sort of get your point of view. El Gigante, Frank Gonzalez. Hit me with that one.
All 7'6" of him. Oh, George. I mean,
how was he?
Very nice guy, very nice individual. Couldn't speak a lick of English, but a really nice guy. Could eat like crazy. Had buffets with him a couple of times. Could eat. Oh my God, could put the food away probably better than Andre could. But George, he, I only got to work with him once, and I look at the match that I had, and the first thing I'm doing is I'm looking at the guy's waist. At that time, before the arthritis kicked in with me, I was 5'10" tall. I was short, but I wasn't short, But I'm looking at this guy, and it's like, holy smokes, this guy's huge. He didn't hurt me. I didn't have an issue with him. The body slam that he gave me was a little taller than I was used to, but
Sure.
it was like going off the top turnbuckle. But no, Elegante, he didn't hurt me. But George was a really nice guy.
That's the main thing, is not hurting you.
Exactly.
Bill Kazmaier.
Yeah, he knocked my teeth out of my mouth.
Wow.
My front teeth. The one, if you go back and you watch the match, when I go to shoot him in, he reverses it, and I come back, hits me with the clothesline. You can see both my front teeth pop out of my mouth.
Wow.
So they popped out of my mouth. Match was over. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to the dentist the next morning in Atlanta. So, but no, Bill Kazmaier. I mean, I didn't have any issues with him. I mean, he was just green. He didn't understand the business. He was a strong guy, but he wasn't a bad guy. I mean, and honestly, I mean, when you're in the wrestling ring and you're out there, you're going to take injury. So, I mean, he knocked my teeth out. They're fine now. So, they're capped, but they're fine.
One that I saw that I thought was a little odd, and sort of, I don't know what the backstory is. Ranger Ross, he was like the Pearl or something.
Yeah, Ross was the Pearl.
What's the story there? Because that's the only
story. Yeah, the story with that is, and last time I saw Ranger, it was at Ronnie West's funeral a few years ago, and we talked about the match, and they were playing off the great Muta at the time. Muta was supposed to be coming back at that time, and for some reason he got stuck over in Japan and couldn't get back in time for TV. So I remember going and looking at the board, and I saw Joe Cazana versus the Pearl. I said, well, okay, Muta's back. That's cool. I'll work with Muta tonight. So it ended up being Ross, and he's fun. I mean, you can't I mean, I worked with Ranger, man, and it was a good match. It was a lot of fun, and I can't complain about the match. But it was Ranger Ross.
Was that a one-night deal for Ranger Ross, the Pearl?
I think he did it 2 or 3 times, but that was about it. Then he started putting his Ranger gimmick back on. Yeah, I mean, but bless his heart, he couldn't do the Japanese moves that well. So, but he tried. But I like Ranger Ross. What a really good guy.
The other one was Owen Hart. He didn't have a lot of time in WCW. I know he had Rip Rogers. He did a tag with Ricky Morton.
Mm-hmm.
And the single was with you.
Right. I was able. When Owen came in at that particular time, the new guys coming in, especially the baby faces, they would feed to me or Killer Kyle, Pat Rowe, Horowitz, Bob Cook, some of these guys that are going to be able to go out there and really have a good match with. So I was able to work Owen on TV that one time, and then I was able to get Owen probably about 4 or 5 more times in house shows right after that. And I don't know what happened with him, but he ended up going back to New York. So, Owen didn't stay down there long, but the time that I got to talk to him, got to know him, he was a prankster, and God, he was knowledgeable, and man, could he work. He could work.
Yeah, like he came to England in '91, like the year after he was there with you, and one of the greatest matches I've ever seen is that there's a British wrestler called Danny Collins. And
I've heard of it.
It's just, Owen's style and Danny's style were very much alike, and it's just so crisp. It's like, to me, Danny Collins is like the British version of Brad Armstrong.
Oh, Brad.
That's like Danny Collins to me is the British Brad Armstrong. So to watch him and Owen was it's just crystal clear. So smooth. Southern Boys were the other my only other WCW.
Tracy and Steve, worked with them probably about 500 times, whether it be singles or tags, but mostly tags. When they first
because you worked Steve a lot as the Party Boys as well, didn't you?
The Party Boys. Oh gosh, yeah, Davey and Johnny. Oh God, great guys. Davey and I are still really good friends to this day. But Steve and Tracy, holy smokes, man. These guys were really, really good. I mean, the Wild Eyed Southern Boys, great gimmick, great tag team, underrated tag team, as good as Ricky and Robert, Didn't get the big push like Ricky and Robert, but they were as good. But my God, man, for the first 8 weeks they were in WCW, it was me and Pat Rose against them, or me and Mark Kyle against them, or me and Barry against. I mean, it was everywhere we went. It was me and somebody, with Tracy and Steve. And Tracy will tell you to this day, he said, if not for you, Joe, we never would have had a job in WCW. And I said, dude, I was just there to do a job, and that's what I did. I made you guys look good. I put you guys over. I gave you everything, and I had a job. I was trying to help you get a job because I like those guys, and I love the Armstrong family. Every single one of them they're all good people. The Armstrongs are great people. Tracy's really, really a great guy, in not very good health right now, but I saw him at Bobby Eaton's show back in December in Knoxville because they did a show for Bobby, and I saw Tracy and yeah, but my God, the Southern boys, dude, they were incredible. They were really good, really good.
So you were in 1989. I've seen results of you in the WWF as well as WCW.
Yeah.
How did that work? I mean, did that get you heat or?
Yeah, it did. It did. I went to the WWF, and I was able to stay up there for about 6 months. WCW was going through such a transition at the time. Tully and Arn had left, and when they left, you could see the writing on the wall that things were getting ready to change. So a lot of us, I had to go because it was one of those things. They were cutting back down in WCW as far as how much they were running and everything else. It was a business thing. So I called my old buddy Rick, the man who trained me, and he called Dave Hebner, and Dave said, "Yeah, come on up." So a few of us went on up there, and I was able to stay there for, like I said, about 5 or 6 months. And it honestly, it wasn't what I wanted. The WWF at the time was geared strictly for the big guy, and I was a worker. I was a wrestler. I was a chain wrestler. I was a bumper, and up there, I could go up there and bump all day long, but I'd be bumping for these 7-foot giants. And it just wasn't for me. I picked the phone up. I called Jody Hamilton. I basically begged for my job back, and he said, "Come on back home, kid." So I was lucky to go back to WCW, and I think my last show with WWF was in Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
Right. Yeah. There's not so many WWF results of yours. A few Bill Gardens versus Bad News Brown. That's the main one that pops up everywhere. But,
most of the time, for the WWF, they did their tapings on Mondays and Tuesdays like WCW did. And I can remember going up there and working with Bad News Brown 2 or 3 different times, on TV. And then finally it just got to the point they said, well, we're just going to use you on house shows, and then we'll put you under the mask, on TV. Well, they never put me under the mask on TV, but I was still able to do house shows. So I was able to work with, Coco Beware and SD Jones and guys like that. And, we'd go out and jerk the curtain or be the second match out and get in, take a shower. I'm done going to the hotel, whatever I did back then. And, that's what I did,
So you're pretty much full time there then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We kind of missed out.
I was a short timer in the WWF. So.
Short timer, but full time all the same.
I was a short timer.
We kind of missed out the USA Championship Wrestling bit, really. We kind of jumped straight to the how was that? How was your time there? That was the Fullers, right?
Championship Wrestling?
Yeah.
USA Championship. It was fine. That was Ron Fuller, and
I'm a big fan of USA. I really like the
it was really good. I only worked about 4 matches with them.
Right.
Before I had my little episode in Atlanta when I was too fat to wrestle, but no, it was a lot of fun. I was able to work with, a lot of people I knew, a lot of people I grew up with. I grew up with Buddy Landell, and the greatest talent, this side of Ric Flair there ever was Buddy Landell. He could talk. he could work, he had everything. And, you know, I miss Buddy to this day. We went to the same high school together, you know,
Right.
and, well, Buddy, myself, and the Dirty White Boy went to the same high school together.
Really?
But
Did you know each other before wrestling?
Do what now?
Did you know each other before wrestling?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I knew White Boy when he was just plain old. I won't say his name, but he doesn't care. I knew him when he was Daryl. You know, just like I knew Bud when he was Bud. You know, so. But no, we all knew each other. But USA Wrestling was different. It was local. It was fun, and I was able to work with the RPMs and Dundee, and I worked with Buddy. So I mean, it was fun. You know, like I said, it was about that time, like I said, where I was just too fat to wrestle, and I had to go to the fat farm.
So if we fast forward a little bit from USA,
okay,
to about 1991 is when you started in Smoky Mountain, right?
Oh yeah,
which was
Smoky Mountain.
Which was pretty much must have been like a USA Championship Wrestling reunion to a degree.
Oh man, it was awesome. Smoky Mountain Wrestling it's hard to say, you know, that Smoky Mountain was bad, because to me it wasn't. You know, Jim Cornette and I, to this day, he and I are still good friends, you know, to this day. Now, we did have a little, you know, falling out at one of the shows, but I mean, that's okay. You know, friends do that, but Corny, you know, a lot of people don't like him. You know, he is one of the most opinionated people in the world, but to be perfectly honest with you, a lot of the stuff that he says is 100% spot on. You know, I love Jim, but Smoky Mountain was a great place to be. I was able to wrestle, and at that time I was also one of their road agents. So you know, it was a lot of fun. A lot of my friends were in Smoky Mountain. You know, Horner was in Smoky Mountain. Brad came in. He was in Smoky. Best match I ever had in my life was in Kentucky with Brad Armstrong. I'll never forget that match. As long as I live, that was with WCW. But you know, that's one match you forgot, Johnny. No, but Brad was great. But yes, Smoky Mountain was fun. I mean, it was fun. You know, and that's what I'll say about Smoky.
And close to home as well, right?
Oh gosh, yeah, I was home every night.
Very rare. Exactly.
I think the only time I ever stayed out is one night that Paul Orndorff about got us killed on an interstate up in Kentucky. But well, I don't know. Bobby Fulton got us stuck up in Butcher Holler, Kentucky, where Loretta Lynn's from. No street lights, no nothing. He just drove up a dirt road and said, "Hey, here we are. Why are we here, Bobby?" You know. So, but no, Smokey, I was home almost every night. So it was cool. It was a great territory. Great territory.
Did you travel with the same people?
All the time. All the time.
Who was in your car?
Oh, God. At any given time, me and Killer Kyle, Brian Lee, a lot of times Doug Furness. It was just, God, a lot. It's just, Lord, Horner. I mean, any of the Armstrongs. Tracy was in there with us a lot. But it's just hard to. Usually, if we were going somewhere, it was me and Mark and Tim. Yeah. You know, it was the three of us. Dutch a lot of times. Dutch was with us a lot of times. Dutch, I say this about Dutch, and I hold Dutch right here. You know, I really do. Dutch and I have been friends in and out of the ring for seems like forever. Dutch was the only wrestler that was at the birth of both my kids. Wow. And I can't say enough about Dutch. He's just, like I say, Horner used to tell me all the time, if you walk away from the wrestling business with one or two good friends, then you're doing good. So I've been lucky enough to walk away with 3 or 4 good friends. So, yeah. But Dutch is great. But, you know, like I said, Tracy, me, Mark, Dutch, Tim. I mean, it's just a conglomeration of us. A lot of times it was me and Brian Hildebrand, Mark Curtis.
Right, sure.
Because we were both the road agents. Sandy Scott, I'd ride with him a lot because he was an agent. Tommy Young was another one. Great referee back in his day, but an even better agent. You know, Tommy Young, great agent. But it just depends.
The Tommy Young slide is one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So did you stay Smoky Mountain pretty much to the end?
I stayed with Smoky Mountain up until, I guess it was about, I want to say about a year, 9 months to a year before the Night of Legends.
Right.
I had a kind of sort of a falling out with Smokey, and at a TV taping one night. It was one of these things that was like, this major superstar today wanted to do so much in our match. And I basically just asked him, and my exact words to him were, just, who the hell do you think you are to tell me what you're going to do? You know, I said, if anybody's going to call this, it's going to be me. And the guy didn't like it. And like I said, he's a major superstar today. I won't mention his name, but there's only two big companies.
I can hazard a guess. I'm not going
how
to.
Heated did it get?
I can hazard a guess. I'm not going to.
It got to the point to where this guy went and told Corny, said he doesn't want to do anything. He's not going to work. Yada yada yada. And so Corny just put me in the ring in a TV title match against the Dirty White Boy. And he told White Boy, he said, I want you to go in there and smash him. Don't give him anything. And we had a 10-minute TV match. And when we got in the ring, we got called to the center to do our deal from Mark Curtis. And Tony looked at me and he said, this is what Cornette wants to do. We're not going to do it. We're going to have a good, solid match. I said, okay. Right. So we had a good, solid match. And when I got back to the dressing room, I basically told Cornette to take it and shove it up his ass. And I wasn't gonna be here anymore. I'm done. And that was the only coarse words that he and I ever had with each other. And I can't say enough about what Cornette actually did, you know, for me. I mean, that was just a bad night. You know, That was just a bad night all the way around. We've all had them. And I mean, I've had Jim on my shows that I run, and I've been on a lot of shows that he's been on. And again, Jim is one of my oldest friends in the business. And, but like I said, it was just a bad night for both of us. I mean, it was a bad house. TV stunk that night. And I know how he felt, and I didn't make it any easier. But I was just a young punk kid. I didn't care.
That's most of the way through your time at Smoky Mountain, again, you were still going to WCW, right?
Say that again. I lost.
There was still a crossover period between the time at Smoky and your time in WCW.
Correct.
You know, you were still doing the two. Was
that
all right? Was Cornette all right with that?
He was. I mean, especially after I quit.
Well, he had no choice at that point, did he?
I told him in the beginning that there was no way I could make enough money just working, you know, 3 nights a week or 4 nights a week. Yeah. I said, you know, I had to supplement it. Well, that's when he made me an agent. So he was able to supplement it, and I was okay. By the time I got ready to walk away from Smokey, I was so irritated with what was going on. I was going. So 2 or 3 weeks before I even you know left Smokey, I'd done 3 tapings with WCW. You know, right. I was back with them. And as soon as I finished up with Smokey that one Monday night, I'll never forget it. Tuesday, I was in the Knoxville Coliseum for WCW, and another great match I had with Ricky Steamboat. And you know, I probably was with WCW for about another 8 to 9 months, and then I just basically said, I've had enough. I mean, I'd been married for a couple of years at that time. We just had our first son, and it was time for me to stop. You know, so I pretty much I put everything away. I went to the beautician and had him dye my hair back brown, and you know, so
back to real life.
Yeah, exactly. Get a real job and make real money, and you know, that's what I did.
Was there a gap then between your time as a wrestler and your time as a promoter?
Yeah, there was probably a big gap. I didn't run my first show as a promoter until 2009. Right. Because I never wanted to. I never wanted
15
to do it.
Years there.
I had no desire to be a promoter. And I still don't want to be a promoter, but I am. But no, I mean, I had an opportunity to put something together for a local high school football team back then. And I put it together and we sold it out and we made about $5,000 for the football team. I said, well, this is pretty cool. So basically all I've done is I put shows together for people that buy them. I sell my shows. And I give them their money's worth. You know, I mean, I've brought talent into where I live now. Is just this little town in the southern end of Tennessee. It's between Chattanooga and Knoxville. There's 3 traffic lights in this whole town that I live in. We've got a McDonald's and we got a Piggly Wiggly grocery store. You know, and I like living the life here. I mean, I've got 4 acres of land. I've got a pool behind me. I got a hot tub over here on this side. You know, I mean, I can't complain. But and I said, man, I can sell these shows and we can really do well. And like I said, I brought talent into this place that would never come here. I mean, I've had Tommy Dreamer in here. I've had Ricky and Robert here. Cornette's been here. Teddy Long has been here. You know, WWE Hall of Famers. I've had them here. You know, and again, when I sell my show, I sell about 6 shows a year, and that's all I do. And and right now, really and truly, it is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Because I'm not losing anything. You know, because I tried that once with splitting the gate with a sponsor, and it didn't work out so well because they were letting people in the back door. You know,
the talk of that.
Exactly. So I mean, yeah, but it's fun. But the promotion end of it's fun. Like I said, I've had talent in here. We've sold out the high school, which is well over 1,000 seats. You know, I sell out the middle school here 2 or 3 times a year. It's about 400 people, and it's just fun. It's a family show, and there's no girls going out there and stripping down to their G-string or whatever, and there's not any cussing to speak of. I mean, yeah, okay, there might be a hell, damn, or shit drop, but I mean, you know, nothing major. We do a live feed at every show. It goes out on the internet every time we do a show, and it's just a lot of fun. And I mean, we're enjoying it.
Good. In about 2017,
yeah,
IACW came around, right?
Yeah, IACW, yeah.
How did that all kick off? What's your involvement in that?
Oh my God, I was 100% involved with it. I'll say I was on the booking committee. I'll say that I was the Gordon Soley minus the really good knowledge and voice of that, or Jim Ross, who Jim Ross is the greatest play-by-play guy, announcer in the business still to this day. Tony Schiavone's great. Enjoyed working with both of them, you know, immensely. Les Thatcher was great too. But you know, me personally, I was a wrestler, and I never really talked a whole lot. You know, I mean, even when I did the Paradise City Rocker gimmick with my partner, I mean, Johnny did all the talking. I didn't do anything. You know, I just turned on him every 2 or 3 weeks just to keep things spicy. But IACW came along. I remember.
I thought it was odd that you and Ronnie Garvin were together as the talking team.
Yeah.
Because neither of you really were the most talkative people.
No, absolutely not. But we were the most knowledgeable people.
Yes.
You know, we could call the match the way that Izzy wanted it called. You know, God rest his soul. You know, Jeff passed away a few months ago, and I miss Jeff to this day. But his wrestling persona, Izzy Slapowitz, was this guy was just as good a manager as anybody out there. But in 2017, IACW comes around, and I remember my first conversation I had with him was sitting right here in the same place I'm sitting talking to you. And he said, I'm going to bring this tag team in to face this tag team. And I kept saying, let's not do that. You know, Jeff, let's try this tag team. Well, lucky. And as fate would have it, by the time the first taping rolled around, I was able to use the tag team that I wanted to use. And the most underrated independent tag team on the scene today is a team by the name of the Heat Seekers. One of the best tag teams, Elliot Russell and Matt Sigmund. These guys are, you want to talk about underrated? These guys need a position somewhere. I don't care if it's with the WWE, Ring of Honor, Impact, AEW. These guys are as good as the Revival that showed up last night on AEW. You know, I don't know what their gimmick is now, but they are as good as this team. They are every bit as good as the Midnight Express was.
Wow.
You know, the Heat Seekers are a great tag team. I mean, without a doubt, they got to be one of the top 10 independent tag teams in the country today. Have to be. But these guys are great. And we were able to get them in here, and we were able to use them as a tag team, the heel faction tag team that Izzy managed. So that was really, really good. The singles, on the other hand, wasn't. And that's where Garvin and I had a major disconnect from Izzy. Albeit the talent was okay. They weren't, well, they were okay. They were good enough. But I just personally, as much as I liked Izzy and I loved him like a brother, I wouldn't have done it. You know, I would have concentrated strictly on the tag team deal, because he did have the Seekers, he did have Stan Lee and Davey Rich as babyface tag team. In the beginning, though, it was actually Stan Lee and the Cadillac Cowboy, Steve Burns. I don't know what happened with that, other than I think Steve made Izzy mad one TV taping day, and Izzy just broke it up. So
that was the end of that.
I don't know what came from it, but the Machine, God, one of the biggest monster heels that you could ever see. I mean, this guy's 6'3", weighed 295 pounds, and that guy could work. Tom Pittner, who ended up being the wrestler, you know, and Tommy can go, and he can still go to this day. I just don't think that they meshed well together, you know. Individually against other people, sure, but against each other, the matchup wasn't there. If I was going to put Tommy out there, I would have put him out there with a much smaller heel, you know, one that he could actually wrestle, because Tommy's forte is the fact that he can really wrestle. I mean, he can shoot wrestle as well as anybody. To this day, he can still do that, and he's a couple of years older than I am. But IECW had the potential to be really, really something special. And we ended up doing, I think it was 21 episodes, maybe 22, I can't remember. The last 4 or 5 being really, really good shows. Because I can remember when we started out, I had a little place here where I live, and we actually used it as, you know, the studio, because I actually fixed it up on the inside like a studio
that's where it was, yeah.
Myself and Jerry
I've seen the episode.
And I know you've seen Jerry Sampson out there.
Yeah, sure.
But he'll deny it to this day. I gave him his name, the Arrogance of Excellence, and he'll say, "Oh no, Joe, you didn't do that." I said, "Oh yes, Jerry, I did." But he and I operated a wrestling school here, and we converted it over to where it looked like a TV studio. And we knew we could put 50, 60 people in that place and be just like an old studio setting. And we were able to do that, you know, and through time, we would change from doing our interviews or whatever from where the picture wall that we had there to where we ended up going where we had the little backdrop behind us, and the crowd would sit to our left, to mine and Ronnie's left. And we put 50 people in there every TV taping, you know, and never charge them a dime and just let them come in just like the old days. And we'd film 4 shows, and I mean, they were marathon shows, but it was a lot of fun, but there, you know, as time went on, I mean, it got a little monotonous.
That must have been a financial struggle for Izzy, though, right?
It was, you know, I think so. I think that, and his son Josh and I are still really, really good friends. Matter of fact, you've seen Josh on the tapings. Josh is the commissioner.
Okay, yeah.
Was commissioner of IECW, and he and I are really good friends. Now, Josh had ideas like Ronnie and I did, old school mixed with the new stuff. You know, that's what Ronnie and I wanted to do. That's what Josh wanted to do. Izzy, on the other hand, like I said, I love him to death, but he was stuck in the 70s and 80s, where he thought that people wanted to see somebody win a match with a drop kick, which was novel at that, you know, in 2017. Yeah, it's novel. Catch somebody in the jaw with a drop kick and pin them 1, 2, 3. I mean, that's great. Yeah. But, you know, that's not what people really, really wanted. They didn't mind the old school stuff, but they wanted to see some of the high flying stuff. They wanted to see what these guys could do. We had a kid by the name of Kadeem Cook. He's from North Carolina. really an athletic guy. Damian Bennett was another one. He's from Georgia. Very, very athletic. Could cut the flips and everything off the ropes. But Izzy wouldn't allow that. I mean, you go to the top rope and come off. IECW rules, that was automatic disqualification.
Right.
You know, you throw them over the top rope, disqualification. You stay out on the floor for a 20 count, that's a count out. Now, it made for some good finishes now, especially the 20 count on the floor and the 10 count on the ring apron. Now, that made for really good finishes. But, you know, it was old school rules. I mean, you had the tag rope. I can live with the tag rope. But to not be able to come out and do what you do best, you know, no, you got to be able to mix it together. There was no music, which, you know, I can live with or without it. But
I know some of the tapings were a little flat at times, you know, there was like quiet periods.
They were, but people would, you know, Izzy would come out and blow his whistle. Okay, well that was automatic heat anyway. But I mean, if you brought anybody else out without Izzy, just a normal heel, nobody knew. You know, I mean, they didn't. Are you a heel or are you a babyface? Nobody had a clue. You know, you had your guys like the Seekers or like the Machine, you know, or Tom Pittner that you knew were the definitive heel / babyfaces. You knew who was what when it came to the bigger talent that was there. But when you'd bring guys out like say for example like a Tommy Coffey or a Baron Bullard, who was the number 2 heel tag team in the territory at the time, because that's how we wanted to use them, nobody had a clue. They had no clue.
Because they were friends, right?
Yeah, they were, and they were both really good workers. You know, really good workers. They did go off script one day, and it wasn't cool. I remember Ronnie and I were calling the match, and they came out. They weren't supposed to come to the desk, and you may have seen the episode. I don't even remember which episode it was, but they came out and they started messing with Ronnie and I, and they took my glasses off my face, set them on the table, took my tie and moved my tie around and unbuttoned my shirt, did the same thing to Garvin. And this whole time, Garvin's got me by my belt loop. He's holding me back. And in turn, I'm holding him back, you know, because he and I both were hot. And I can remember. I
can imagine Ronnie hot, to be fair.
Listen, Ronnie was still tough. He's still tough to this day. But I broke character. And I just told both of them, I said, guys, if you all don't leave now, Ronnie and I are going to get both of you, throw you in the ring, and beat the living piss out of you. And we were taping, you know, and I said, this is not Joe Cazana, the commentator, talking. This is Joe Cazana, the man that's going to kick your ass, talking. You know, and I was hot. And that was the last match on that taping. And so when Ronnie and I signed off, I can remember going upstairs and Garvin was livid. Where the blankety blanker, you know, it was, you know, he was hot. That was a rough day, but that was the only time anybody really ever went off script. But no, IECW could have been something really, really big, and it floundered, and it floundered after the big show. It was at Camp Jordan Arena in Chattanooga. Our TV, basically the actual TV, not what went out on the web or anything like that. It was a TV station in Cleveland, Tennessee, which is 30 miles north of Chattanooga. And, you know, I kept telling Jeff, I said, and Ronnie did too. So did Josh. Let's do this in Cleveland. Let's go to one of the high schools, or let's go to the Armory and let's do it there. I said, we could sell it out in Cleveland. This place we went to was a 3,000 seat, 4,000 seat arena that held, you know, hosted bird shows, you know, right. and Jerry Lawler took a crew down there 2 years before and didn't sell 50 tickets, you know, and we're talking Lawler, right? Dundee and guys like that. Yeah. And they couldn't draw. So we do Camp Jordan, and it was like, okay, this is crazy, but we went with it anyway. So we go down there, and I remember, I guess it was about a month or so before we went, he, you know, put the tickets out there to sell, you know, early. He wasn't selling tickets. I mean, nothing sold. By the time it was all said and done, there wasn't 50 people there. in a 3,000 seat arena. And I know how much money that Jeff lost with this, and you know, he couldn't go on after that. It was just too much. He couldn't get sponsors. Nobody wanted to sponsor it because nobody knew about it. As far as it was, nobody really knew. As well as our TV ratings were at the time. I mean, we had 6 o'clock on Saturday night. I mean, that how good can you get?
Yeah.
And we had really good ratings, and people would watch. But when it came to going to the show, nobody was going to come to Camp Jordan. The place it's on the Tennessee-Georgia state line. It's in the middle of nowhere, and nobody was going to be there. And like I said, they're so used to hosting bird and snake shows, they didn't have a clue what professional wrestling was. You know, even when I was with WCW and we went into Chattanooga in the big roundhouse down there, I mean, we couldn't put 300-400 people in that place. And this is with Ric Flair main eventing. You know, Chattanooga's not a big wrestling town.
Yeah.
So it used to be.
If they couldn't do it, the clues are there.
Exactly. Yeah. So IECW had an opportunity, but I will say this. And you can call it an exclusive if you want to. If anybody's even going to watch us on this thing, but I know people over there don't care one way or the other. But IECW may be making a return, and they may be making a return sooner than most people think. So
that's good. I was a fan myself, and you know, I spread the word.
Well, you're old school. You're old school,
man.
So yeah. But JCP, which is, of course, me, and IECW may do something together. So basically be me and Josh. So, you know.
But JCB's still going, isn't it? Like, as soon as the pandemic's out the way, we'll be doing the Spring Fling.
Yep. Spring Fling has now turned into the Summer Sizzler since the pandemic nailed us back in April.
Winter Wobble by the time if it doesn't end up.
You know, I know I've seen your posters out there too, but this poster I'm getting ready to put out for this one, it's going to be JCP presents Summer Sizzler, formerly known as Spring Fling. So we're gonna put that out there, and I think I'm going to put the names on the poster of the guys that were actually going to be there, and then I'm going to mark through them and put the names of the guys that are really going to be there, and do something like that. So it's going to be fun. I think that I mean I've got Dutch coming in for this. He'll be here, and I've got some you know, new talent that's going to be here. I got Kenzie Page is going to be here. She had her debut a couple of weeks ago on AEW, and she wrestled against Nyla Rose, you know, the world champion. So she's got some experience now with the big dogs, as they say. Of course, I've got a set of twins, gals here where I live. They're from here as well, and they were trained by Luke Gallows down in Georgia. Okay. And then Tracy Taylor, I don't know if you remember Tracy or not, but she was big time with TNA back in the day, from Hawaii. Okay. Really, really, you know, good worker. But they're local, and they went to high school here, and they're pro wrestlers now. So they're going to come and work, and they're going to work with Kenzie and the Dream Girl Ellie. Now, I don't know if you know who Blanco Loco is. I don't know if you remember him or you've even seen him, but he is this Lucia. Man, this guy can go. And Ellie is with him. They call themselves the International Superstars. So they're really, really good. And then my normal local guys, you know, I try to get the heat seekers to come in here, but those doggone guys, they always doing something else, you know, always doing something else. But we're actually going to crown a new set of tag team champions on my next show. We're actually having a set of tag belts made, even as we speak. They're being made. So, I mean, it's coming along. It's going to be fun if we can do it. You know, hopefully we can do it. I don't know. Yeah. We'll see.
Just a case of as and when.
Yeah, maybe the pandemic will go away. I don't know how you feel, but I've been working through the whole thing. So, you know.
No, I've not. See, I've just been sat at home spending time talking to people on Skype like this.
Yeah, well, I hear you. Yeah. Knuckleheads like me.
How can people get in touch with Joe Cazana about his JCP?
Well, basically, man, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. You follow me on all those, I believe. But
Yeah.
Joe Cazana Promotions, or I think it's either Joe Cazana Promotions or Joe Cazana Promotions presents the Wild World of Wrestling. I can't remember how it is. I got somebody that actually does that
Wild
for
World
me.
I'm pretty sure it's Wild World of Wrestling.
Yeah, I started it, and then my oldest son tells me that I'm too bland and vanilla, so he's taking the page over, and he's doing it right now. My oldest is, and like I said, he's the one that's breaking in the wrestling business. He's got all the talent in the world to do this, man. The kid stands 6'2". He weighs 295 pounds. You know, he's a big kid. Don't ask me where he got the size, but my youngest son, he's getting ready to go and play college football at Tusculum University. He earned a college scholarship this year to go play there. Now he's 6'2", but he's 210 pounds. Listen, I married a woman that was 6 foot tall anyway, so I had to change my gene. You know, I had to get some tall guys. But if they want to reach me, it's Joe Cazana Promotions, or it's just plain old, you know, and I'll throw it out there, just Joe Cazana on regular Facebook with my real shoot last name, which is Fritz. So. But I got that, and on Twitter, I'm Cazana Joe on Twitter. So I mean, just give me a shout, follow me, talk to me, whatever. I mean, I answer just about everybody, you know, if they're respectful.
Before we go, I just wanted to ask: of all the years in wrestling that you've had, any regrets at all? If you could do anything again, what would it be? You know, if you could turn back time.
Go to Japan. I had an opportunity to go to Japan in 1991, and I didn't go.
Go to Japan?
Yeah. I was going to work for Baba. And,
right.
Yeah. And the day they wanted me to leave was the day that I got married.
Oh, wow.
And it was either get married or go to Japan. Now, I weighed my options. I come back. It's 30 days. It's tax-free money. Should be okay. Nah, it didn't fly too well when I brought it up. But going to Japan was probably my biggest regret, was not going. I would have said Puerto Rico, but
Puerto Rico is like
on the other side of Puerto Rico, there was a trip lined up that I had to go to Puerto Rico, and Brody had gotten killed a few months prior.
Right.
So there was no American going to Puerto Rico at that time. You know, but really, I guess my biggest regret is the fact that I didn't go to Japan. Maybe seconded towards, you know, I probably could have done a whole lot more in the business if I just wanted to. But I always thought, you know, and this is how I feel about me, and I don't want to, I'm not braggadocious, and I'm not the same. I'm not. Golden Boy was braggadocious, you know. Joe's not, but back in my day, man, I was good at what I did. You know, and I took pride in what I did, whether I was doing a job on TV or whether they were putting me over at a house show, whether I was taking this bump or that bump. But I was really, really good at what I did. I just feel like in my time, in my era, I was too small to do what I needed to do. I feel like if I had come along today, I could be with Vince right now.
Yeah.
You know, so, but in any case, I'm down to 20% on my phone now. So thank you so much.
We're going to wrap it up anyway. I got my last question out. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much,
Johnny. Anytime, any place you want to talk, man, we'll talk. And it's been
really enjoyed it. I just want to tell everyone out there.
Your fans need to get out and see exactly what it is you do, because you're old school. You understand this business, man, and you got a lot to be proud of for what you're doing over there, because you're doing it the right way.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Joe. Just want to tell everyone out there that this will be going out. Well, this is the Friday episode. On Tuesday, we've got AWA Ring Wrestling Stars and DN Wrestling Wrestler, the Soul Killer. He's on Tuesday's show. Thanks once again, Joe.
Hey,
thanks
man,
for joining us
you
at home.
That you do.
We'll see you all on Tuesday. Thank you.
Talk soon.